day, everyone. So our topic for today is the chapter 22, Exile in Dapitan, 1892 to 1896. So what do you mean by exile? So exile means that you are being forced to leave your residence. So in this chapter, Rizal is forced to leave his residence and he is currently living in Dapitan. So Rizal lived in exile in faraway Dapitan, a remote town in Mindanao which was under the missionary jurisdiction of the Jesuits from 1892 to 1896. So this 4-year interregnum in his life was tediously unexciting, but was abundantly fruitful with varied achievements. So he practiced medicine, pursued scientific studies, continued his artistic and literary works, widened his knowledge of language, and etc. Beginning of exile in Dapitan. The steamer Cebu, which brought Rizal to Dapitan, carried a letter from Father Pablo Pastels, superior of the Jesuit Society in the Philippines, to Father Antonio Obac, Jesuit parish priest of Dapitan. In this letter, Father Superior Pastels informed Father Obac that Rizal could live at the parish convent on the following conditions. 1. That Rizal publicly retract his errors concerning religion and make statements that clearly pro-Spanish and against revolution. 2. That he perform the church rites and make general confession of his past life. Then number 3, that henceforth he conduct himself in an exemplary manner as a Spanish subject and a man of religion. So Rizal did not agree with these conditions. Consequently, he lived in the house of the commandant, Captain Carnicero. The relations between Carcinero, the warden, and Rizal, the prisoner, were warm and friendly. So Carcinero was charmed Rizal's fine qualities and personality. So Carcinero came to know that Rizal was not a common felon, much less a filibustero. He gave good reports on his prisoner to Governor Despujol. Rizal, on his part, admired the kind, generous Spanish captain. As evidence of his esteem, he wrote a poem, A Don Ricardo Carnicero, on August 26, 1892, on the occasion of the captain's birthday. So, wins in Manila Lottery. On September 21, 1892, the sleepy town of Dapitan burst in hectic excitement. The mail boat Butuan was approaching the town with colored pennants flying in the sea breezes. Captain Carnicero, thinking that a high Spanish official was coming, hastily dressed in gala uniform, ordered the town folks to gather at the shore, and himself rushed there, bringing a brass band. So the mail boat Butuan brought no Spanish officials but happy tidings that the lottery ticket number 9736, jointly owned by Captain Carnicero, Dr. Sal, and Francisco Equilar, Spanish resident of Dipolog, our neighboring town of Dapitan, won the second prize of 20,000 pesos in the government-owned Manila Lottery. So Rizal's share of the winning lottery ticket was 6,200 pesos. Upon receiving this sum, he gave 2,000 pesos to his father and 200 pesos to his friend Basa in Hong Kong, and the rest he invested well by purchasing agricultural lands along the coast of Talisay, about 1 kilometer away from Dapitan. Sa pagkadaog ni Rizal sa lottery sa Manila, diri na to makita ang iyang lighter side. So, Rizal never drank hard liquor and never smoked, but he was a lottery addict. During his first sojourn in Madrid from 1882 to 1885, he always invested at least 3 pesetas every month in lottery tickets. This was his only vice. So, commented when Sislao E. Ritana, his first Spanish biographer and former enemy. Then, Rizal and Pastel's debate on religion. So during his exile in Dapitan, Rizal had a long and scholarly debate with Father Pastels on religion. So it started when Father Pastels sent him a book of Sarda with advice that the latter Rizal should desist from his Mahaderas, foolishness, in viewing religion from the prism of individual judgment and self-esteem. So Rizal and Pastel's debate on religion is an interesting religious debate, and it can be read in 4 letters written by Rizal as follows. So September 1, 1892, November 11, 1892, January 9, 1893, and April 4, 1893. And Rizal and Pastel's debate on religion. In Father Pastel's replies dated October 12, 1892, December 8, 1892, February 2, 1893, and April, no exact date, 1893. So, in all his letters to Father Pastels, Rizal revealed his anti-Catholic ideas which he had acquired in Europe and embitterment at his persecution by the bad friars. It is understandable why he was bitter against the friars who committed certain abuses under the cloak of religion. So according to Rizal, individual judgment is a gift from God, and everybody should use it like a lantern to show the way that self-esteem is, if moderated by judgment, saves man from unworthy acts. He also argued that the pursuit of truth may lie in the different paths, and thus religion may vary, but they all lead to the light. So Father Pastels tried his best to win back Rizal to the fold of Catholicism. Divine faith, he told Rizal, supersedes everything including reason, self-esteem, and individual judgment. So no matter how wise a man is, he argued, his intelligence is limited. Hence, he needs the guidance of God. So he refuted Rizal's attacks on Catholic dogmas as misconceptions of rationalism and naturalism, errors of misguided souls. So, in this interesting debate between two brilliant polemicists, ended inconclusively. Rizal could not be convinced by Pastel's arguments, so that he lived in Dapitan beyond the pale of his mother church. In spite of their religious differences, Rizal and Pastels remained good friends. Father Pastels gave Rizal a copy of Imitación de Cristo, or Imitation of Christ, a famous Catholic book by Father Thomas a Kempis, and Rizal, in grateful reciprocation, gave his Jesuit opponent in debate a bust of St. Paul which he had made. So, although Rizal did not subscribe to Pastel's religion's interpretation of Catholic dogmas, he continued to be a Catholic. He continued to hear Mass at the Catholic Church of Dapitan and celebrate Christmas and other religious fiestas in the Catholic way. So his Catholicism, however, was the Catholicism that requires an enlightenment, the Catholicism of Renan and Teilhard de Jardin. Next, Rizal challenges a Frenchman to a duel. So while Rizal was still debating with Father Pastels by means of exchange letters, he became involved in a quarrel with a French acquaintance in Dapitan, Mr. Juan Lardet, a businessman. So this man purchased many logs from the lands of Rizal. It so happened that some of the logs were of poor quality. So Lardet, in a letter written to Antonio Miranda, a Dapitan merchant and friend of Rizal, expressed his disgust with the business deal and stated that if he, Rizal, were a truthful man, he would have told me that the lumber not included in the account were bad. So Miranda indiscreetly forwarded Lardet's letter to Rizal. One of the hero's weaknesses, it should be noted, was his sensitivity. So when he read Lardet's letter, he flared up in anger, regarding the Frenchman's unsavory comment as an affront to his integrity. Immediately, he confronted Lardet and challenged him to a duel. So when the commandant heard of the incident, Carnicero told the Frenchman to apologize rather than accept the challenge. So he said, "My friend, you have not a Chinaman's chance with a fight with Rizal on the field of honor. Rizal is an expert in martial arts, particularly in fencing and pistol shooting." Heeding the commandant's advice, Lardet wrote to Rizal in French, dated Dapitan on March 30, 1893, apologizing for the insulting comment. Rizal, as a gentleman and well-versed in Pondador Hispanic chivalry code, accepted the apology and good relations between him and the Frenchman were restored. So it is interesting to recall that twice before his sensitivity caused him to challenge people to a duel. So Antonio Lona in 1890 and W.E. Ritana in the same year. So Rizal and Father Sanchez. Father Pastels, aside from his personal efforts to persuade Rizal to discard his errors of religion, instructed two Jesuits in Mindanao, Father Abac Cora of Dapitan and Father Jose Villaclara Cora of Dipolog, to try their best to bring back Rizal within the Catholic fold. Furthermore, he assigned Father Francisco de Paula Sanchez, Rizal's favorite teacher at the Ateneo de Manila, to Dapitan. So when the commandant heard of the incident, Carnicero told the Frenchman to apologize rather than accept the challenge. So he said, "My friend, you have not a Chinaman's chance with a fight with Rizal on the field of honor. Rizal is an expert in martial arts, particularly in fencing and pistol shooting." Heeding the commandant's advice, Lardet wrote to Rizal in French, dated Dapitan on March 30, 1893, apologizing for the insulting comment. Rizal, as a gentleman and well-versed in Pondador Hispanic chivalry code, accepted the apology and good relations between him and the Frenchman were restored. So it is interesting to recall that twice before his sensitivity caused him to challenge people to a duel. So Antonio Lona in 1890 and W.E. Ritana in the same year. So Rizal and Father Sanchez. Father Pastels, aside from his personal efforts to persuade Rizal to discard his errors of religion, instructed two Jesuits in Mindanao, Father Abac Cora of Dapitan, and Father Jose Villaclara, Cora of Dipolog, to try their best to bring back Rizal within the Catholic fold. Furthermore, he assigned Father Francisco de Paula Sanchez, Rizal's favorite teacher at the Ateneo de Manila, to Dapitan. So, Father Sanchez, since Rizal's days at the Ateneo, had spent 3 years in Europe and returned to Manila in 1881 to resume teaching at the Ateneo and to head its museum. He was the only Spanish priest to defend Rizal's Noli Me Tangere in public. Immediately upon his arrival in Dapitan, Father Sanchez lost no time in meeting his former favorite student. Of all the Jesuits, he was the most beloved and esteemed by Rizal. Almost daily, they carried theological arguments in a friendly manner, but all efforts of Sanchez were in vain. For once, Rizal could not be convinced by his former beloved teacher. So, despite his failure to persuade Rizal to discard his unorthodox views on the Catholic religion, Father Sanchez enjoyed the latter's company. He assisted Rizal in beautifying the town plaza. On his birthday, Rizal gave him a precious birthday gift, a manuscript entitled Estudios sobre la Lingua Talaga, Studies on the Tagalog Language, a Tagalog grammar which Rizal wrote and which he dedicated to his beloved former teacher. Next, idyllic life in Dapitan. So, in Dapitan, Rizal had an exemplary life, idyllic in serenity. Since August 1893, members of his family took turns in visiting him in order to assuage his loneliness in the isolated outpost of Spanish power in the Moreland. Among them were his mother, sisters Trinidad, Maria Narcisa, and nephews Teodoso, Estanislao, Mauricio, and Prudencio. He built his house by the seashore of Talisay, surrounded by fruit trees. He had also another house for his schoolboys and a hospital for his patients. Describing his life in Dapitan, Rizal wrote to Blumenkrit on December 19, 1893. Rizal's encounter with the friar's spy. During the early days of November 1893, Rizal was living peacefully and happily at his house in Talisay, a kilometer away from Dapitan. His mother, sisters Narcisa and Trinidad, and some nephews were then living with him. His blissful life was then suddenly jolted by a strange incident involving a spy of friars. This spy was assumed name of Pablo Mercado, and posing as a relative, secretly visited Rizal at his house on the night of November 3, 1893. So, he introduced himself as a friend and relative, showing a photo of Rizal and a pair of buttons with the initial PM, Pablo Mercado, as evidence of his kinship with the Rizal family. So, in the course of their conversation, the strange visitor offered his services as a confidential courier of Rizal's letters and writings for the patriots in Manila. Rizal, being a man of prudence and keen perception, becomes suspicious. Irked by the impostor's lies, he wanted to throw him out of the house, but mindful of his duty as a host and concerning the late hour of the night and the heavy rainfall, he hospitably invited the unwanted visitor to stay at his house for the night. And early in the next day, after the departure of his bogus relative, Rizal attended to his daily chores, forgetting the incident of the previous night. Later, he learned that the rascal was still in Dapitan, telling people that he was a beloved relative of Dr. Rizal. So, losing his cool, he went to the Comandancia and denounced the impostor to Captain Juan Sitgits, who succeeded Captain Carcinero on May 4, 1893 as commandant of Dapitan. Without much ado, Sitgits ordered the arrest of Pablo Mercado and instructed Anastasio Adriatico to investigate him immediately. So the truth came out during this investigation. The real name of Pablo Mercado was Florencio Namanan. He was a native of Cagayan de Misamis, single and about 30 years old. So, he was hired by the Recollect friars to a secret mission in Dapitan to introduce himself to Rizal as a friend and relative, to spy on Rizal's activities and to French certain letters and writings of Rizal which might incriminate him in the revolutionary movement. Strangely, Commandant Sitgit suddenly quashed the investigation and released the spy. He promptly forwarded the transcripts of the investigation together with his official report to Governor General Blanco, who in turn kept these documents as highly confidential. So Rizal, who was surprised at the turn of events, requested for a copy of the proceedings of the investigation, but Sitgits denied his request, as now disclassified and preserved at the Biblioteca Nacional in Madrid. These documents contain certain mysterious deletions. So these available documents on the failed mission of the friar's spy have been quoted by three Rizalist biographers: Ritana 1907, Palma 1949, and Jose Baron Fernandez on 1982. But none of these biographers quoted the text of another document which is more reliable and valuable in clarifying the whole incident. It is Rizal's letter to his brother-in-law, Manuel T. Higaldo, written in Dapitan on December 20, 1893. Based upon all these available documentary sources, the incident of the secret mission of Pablo Mercado in Dapitan was not an assassination attempt on Rizal. It was merely an espionage plot concocted by the friars.